We are live. The mics are hot. Cameras are hot. And this is episode 236 of the No Hangover Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate across all platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts. And we're on Spotify. Check us out on our socials. On Instagram at No Hangover Podcast. And on TikTok at No_Hangover. We're back with another one. This is one that I'm really excited for. Since I started the podcast, I've been, wanting to have you on, get you on the podcast. I think you're very well-spoken, very well thought out. When you do say things that might be controversial or people might not agree with, you put it in a way that it's hard to be mad at. And I think that's very difficult to do nowadays because I feel like people are looking to be mad at everything. So to do that, is a skill in and of itself. So, yeah, welcome, Jay. What's good, dog? How you been?
Oh man, it's been a minute since we've seen each other. It's fuck, man. It's like I don't know. It's been a while. A lot of life changes. I think man, did I see you even before I had a kid?
Nah, because I left Casey's. I want to say, fuck. I don't even remember because I got there in like 2016, 17-ish. Worked there for about 2.5 years. So yeah, probably around 2019. February, March of 2019, because then that's when I started. I worked at Sprint for a month. I'm like, well, this fucking sucks. And then I had an opportunity to work for the landscaping division in Walmart. And then I did that for a little bit. So yeah, around that time. So, I don't know when your son was born, but.
It's 2018 he was born. And I left Casey's. That was that same year. So that was December of that year was when I left Casey's. And then, yeah, that was it. Which is wild. It's wild to think about. That was like a very large part of my life. Was working in that restaurant.
Yeah. That place, I remember it like as a little kid, it being there. Like that was a staple of that area for a long time. And then, just kind of fast forward full circle moments and I'm working there because of, whatever reason. And then, that was, through that time, that was, I got arrested in 2017 of August. And that was kind of like a big, changing point for me in my life as far as like just, not to sound cheesy, but becoming a man essentially. And, kind of going through that process, having to, I was working 5 jobs at one point because I was selling weed, and that was a big part of my my financial income. And then, that's gone. So, I was working at Casey's. I was working with my stepdad for his roofing company. I was working for a landscaping company. I was working for an event, set up and tear down, things like that. Then from there, I got a gig working at a bridal shop, pretty much as being a doorman, which was pretty nice because they, suited me up, tailored with nice suits and all that shit. And I was just serving champagne to bridal parties. So that was a sweet gig. But it was kind of in that moment where I'm like, all right, this is kind of what it takes to, not having 5 jobs. But
you're like, that's not what I'd like to
do.
But
just being a grown up and being responsible and doing things kind of on the up and up and things like that. So, that was, definitely a good time. And then, I met you. And like I said, from when I met you, you were already, you were in school. To me, and even to this point still, we talked a little bit, we'll save, we'll leave that off camera. But, to me, you were very buttoned up in a sense. You were working, you were going to school, you seemed like you had a direction. And I'm like, that's what I am trying to, not necessarily be you, but model myself after and kind of have that type of, all right, this is the plan. This is how I'm going to execute the plan. Once that shit's done, this is where I'm going to be on to the next thing. So that kind of was that's what kind of drew me to you and drew me to just kind of, hearing what you had to say. And then, we follow each other on social media and things like that. And just like I said, the when you post things, it's not just because you want people to fucking see that you're still alive, or you just, you know, like to hear or see your own thoughts, or it didn't seem like it was for any validation. Like, it seemed like there was purpose and meaning behind it.
Yeah, I think especially, I mean, excuse me, during 2020, I think we were in a situation where we were just like trapped in our homes. We can, you know, and granted, Florida was a different situation because I feel like we were trapped far less than everybody else. Like, I feel like we were kind of freed before the rest of the country. But 2020 was a weird situation because we're all kind of sitting at home. We had nothing better to do but be on social. We had a lot of other things that were better. we probably should have been doing a lot of other things,
being more productive.
Besides just looking at the news. And but I mean, at the time, we were probably all watching the news, just trying to figure out, like, when can I leave the house? Like, when can I go back to work? So we were all kind of stuck in the situation, and a lot of it was like me getting on social media, reading the things that people would say. And the interesting thing about my interaction on social media, I think maybe a year before, like maybe in 2019, I had more or less said that I was kind of done with using social media to like post pictures about my family. Like, I was kind of done. Like, I wanted to keep my family, and I still, to some extent, like, I have a personal Instagram page. I have a personal Facebook page, like, where if I don't know you, you're not on those pages. Like, I don't want my family out there on social media like that. But I more or less said, like, I'm going to use this as a platform to have conversations. I love seeing pictures of your dog. That's amazing. I love that. But
who doesn't love dogs?
Right. Like, I love it. Like, I love dogs. But I want to have conversations. I want to have, like, even hard conversations about things. And I remember, that might have even been earlier than that. There were a lot of conversations that I had that were very difficult. You know, I come from a background of, you know, I'm a kid from Baltimore, Maryland. Like, I come from a shitty part of the country. You know, come from a terrible time. Like, I grew up, you know, I was born in Baltimore during the crack epidemic. You know, like, my dad still to this day says, you know, my parents split up. My mom moved me to Florida. And my dad was upset about it, but he still says to this day, he's like, I feel like that was the best thing for you at that time. Because at that time, I had a very low chance of making it to a certain age, especially where we lived, where I was coming up from. Like, it made sense for me to get out of that situation. So initially, I think I had I had ideas about things that most people would expect me to have. And I had those ideas for a long time. And over time, I'm just a person who's kind of interested in everything. Like, I'm constantly trying to, like, I get this very small, you know, I'm, you know, very recently found out that I was on the spectrum. Like, that was like, you know, which I kind of, you know, over time, it's like, you know, you talk to,
I kind of already knew that.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. This all
makes sense now.
This all adds up. And, I just remember, if I find something that I'm interested in, I go on real deep dives. And I remember becoming interested in certain topics, whether it be politics to some degree, race to some degree, race and interactions with police officers. Like, there were all these things because, you know, even some topics like gay marriage. There was like all these things that I just got interested in around like 2018, 2019, started reading books from Dr. Thomas Sowell, but it wasn't because I thought I was going to agree with the things that he had to say. I read those books. It was almost like rage reading. Like, I read them because I was like, there's no way this motherfucker's right. Like, I would watch his YouTube videos and I'd be like, there's no way this is right. This has to be wrong. There's no way this is correct. And I just remember reading some things, and I just started to create sort of these I guess kind of like heterodox opinions on things. Like, I started to create these opinions on things that did not fit what everybody else thought my opinion should be. And it wasn't because I'd shifted so much. It's because I couldn't find enough data to support my previous opinion on things. It's like I have a very sort of science-minded brain. I don't make. My wife hates it. Like, I don't make decisions unless I have all the information. I am now an analyst by trade. Like I don't, I look at a bunch of data and I make a decision on things. That's just who I am.
I mean, it seems pretty fitting.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, it's like, even when we worked at the restaurant, like I had like all these systems for things and like, we're going to do this way. And, it's just who I am. In 2020 came and I would just read these posts and I'm like, man, like, do I want to get into that conversation? Like, do I, like this could get a little dicey. And then I would just post things. And a lot of it was very seldomly was it me posting an opinion on things. It was me making a statement and then saying, and if you go back and read some of those posts, it was like, could this be the thing? Maybe. But it could also be this thing. Like trying to get people to kind of think outside of what
they're used to thinking and what they think is right or wrong, which I feel like the older I get, the more I realize that there is not really right or wrong. It's just your side and my side. And, most people are going to think that because it's their side that they're the good guys and then the other guys are the bad guys. And when it's like, no, really, we're all bad guys. We all fucking suck. So like, it's like we all have our things. Some are better than others, but we all have our little things that, maybe might not be the most favorable trade or things like that. But, I just kind of, because of society, most people can kind of reel it in for the most part, or when they're out in public at work or doing whatever. But at some point that shit comes out a little bit. And I feel like 2020 was very much that. And I feel I feel like what upset people the most was, for me, looking back on it, I feel like 2020 was like a mirror, and a lot of people were looking into it and not liking what they saw, and then just projecting that and not necessarily doing the proper like inner work to like what they see, essentially.
Yeah.
And, like I said, I mean, I would read some of your posts and whether I agreed with it or not, like I said, just the way that you were articulating yourself and not necessarily saying this is a matter of fact, but this is what's out here. This is what we know. Like how, like this here, like make your own opinion, but like not necessarily trying to, like I said, not necessarily, there was no like invoking emotion or anything, which I feel like a lot of people are posting to do that, just to get people upset, get people riled up, say certain things that might be true, but like leaving other things out that, oh, well, that makes sense then, like as to why everything is happening in whatever situation. Like people were selective on what they were putting, and you were very much, nah, this is laying everything out as it was and letting people come to their own conclusions, which, I would have thought that, people would be more accepting of that or more open to it. And then you start to see that people weren't. And it's like, well, it just seemed like people were just arguing for the sake of arguing. It seems like people are still doing that. They're just arguing for the sake of it and with no real end game at the end of it, and just doing it for shits and giggles, which kind of leads me into and you touched on it a little bit. Some of the things that you said or posted or whatever might not necessarily fit what people might think you should think or should agree with. How was that a challenge for you to just in your everyday life? Because, even though, it's social media and people post it and it's really not anything, certain things do stick. And when certain people do say certain things, it's like, oh, damn, like I kind of fucking hurt a little bit, or like, I thought we were cool. And like, now you're coming at me like I'm a fucking stranger. Like how was navigating that part of it?
So I never said anything to anybody else out of malice. So I think that was the big thing. It's like, so internally, I never felt like, it was never like a jab at anybody else. So it was like, I knew that if somebody felt a certain way about me, it wasn't due to the intent. It wasn't due to my intent. Like it was their perception of the thing that I said. And so they felt a certain way about it. I think that, and the funny thing is, it's like even people that I went to high school, it's funny because the people that I went to high school with had a perception of me. you know, there were people that I went to high school with that were like, you know, and granted, I was the kid, like I moved here from Baltimore, Maryland, and I went to a private school in Baltimore, Maryland. So I moved to Florida, and Floridians have like a certain accent, especially black people from Florida. It's a different way of speaking. And so I immediately got sort of pegged as like, you know, the white dude, the white black kid, you know, and I was like into skateboarding and, you know, it was like all these things. And I still do listen to a ton of different kind of music, but it was like people had me pegged as being this thing almost right out of the gate. And typically it was from black people. Like black people had me pegged as this person right out of the gate. But then when I explained to him, like, don't get it mixed up. Like, I came from the ghetto. Like I came from like all the places that you're saying that certain things are happening. I was there. Like I've seen it firsthand. So I think when people would feel a certain way about it, it's almost like I had to educate them on who I was before they could make it's not like I wasn't this kid that like grew up in Heathrow and was never inside of certain situations. You know, I grew up in that. And even the fact that I would come at I would even explain, like, if you've been paying attention, like the opinions I have now are almost the complete antithesis of what they used to be. Like, I think differently now. So it isn't me kind of pushing a narrative that I've had forever. This is me shifting the way that I see things. And as opposed to me just kind of, you know, this is the way things are always going to be. And I think that's where people really struggle with that. It's like they plant their flag and they just have a really hard time budging from it because their identity is wrapped up in it.
And that's what I was about to say, is that people become their ideas and become their thoughts and become that instead of flowing through life and being just that and just flowing with it and like understanding that at this point I thought this because this made sense. But as I've gotten older, as I've gotten new information, as, you know, whatever life situation happens, my mindset changes. I mean, my body changes. I mean, everything changes. Isn't it like every 7 years, like you have pretty much all new cells in your body anyway. So like quite literally, you're almost like a new person. But people get so like attached to ideas, and that is who they are. And that is, you know, their whole identity. Is just like, to me, though, I mean, it's kind of a lazy way of trying to figure yourself out, or like trying to, you know, I guess fit what people think is right or what people are going to accept and things like that. But the thing with that is that if you step out of that scope or step out of that environment, you go to somewhere else, like people are not going to give a fuck about any of that. Like, if you're not your true, like if you're not authentic and genuine, if you go into another, people are going to sniff that out real quick and be like, the fuck is your, like, who are you? Like, why are you like, it seems off. So it just to me, it just makes more sense to, I don't know, figure yourself out. Like, yeah, have ideas, have opinions. I have a fucking podcast. I have plenty of opinions, but like with new information, it's okay to change your opinion. And what I thought a year ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I don't have to think the same thing. Like, that's okay. Like, I feel like that's part of just growing and being a human, and just part of being life, or part of just life. And I don't know, like,
I mean, I think even sort of that 7-year kind of cell turnover, I think if it's more of like every day, like I might wake up tomorrow and I might see something or read something and go, huh, I never thought about that way. Like, and then I think we should all be able to change our opinions on things in the moment. Sometimes I've had deep conversations with people about certain topics, and I've changed my opinion inside of those conversations, which has like radically shifted my perspective of the world. Like inside of that conversation, it's changed. So I think the thing that people struggle with, and some of it's critical thinking to some degree, but I think it's just, I don't know if I guess lazy would be probably, it's like easier. It's easier to just stick to one side of an argument.
Yeah.
It's hard to step outside of that argument or that perspective and think about something else. It's hard to do that. And so I think because as human beings, we're kind of wired to do the easy thing.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to do the hard thing.
Yeah, you look for the the easiest route, the route of least resistance and things like that. But like, so like, that is something that I admire just in anybody. But something that I did notice a lot is that even, especially when it comes to very controversial topics, politics, religion, things that go within that even some of the smartest people, the most intellectual people that I admire on a level of just like, wow, like they become stupid as fuck. And they like all logic and all reason kind of goes out the door when it comes to those type of things. And that's something that never makes sense because me personally, I'm not the smartest person. Like I'm not very, I think I'm, savvy as far as like, just common sense. And like, I'm good at picking up things as far as, body language, energy, things like that. But it's like, I'm a college dropout. I have like really little as far as accolades and things like that, very little to my name, but like, I can see that like, it's like, it's not that deep. First of all, like everybody has a different perception and perspective of what's going on. But like some of these things that are just being pushed that are clearly just to get you riled up and emotional, and people are just feeding into it and thinking that's normal and that's right. And you're wrong. And it's like, man, like you've gone 10, 20 years of school and you've done this and you've done that and you've worked for this company, you've worked for that. And like, you're just, when it comes to these things, you just let all your critical thinking, all your, all that just goes out the window. Like, and that's something that's always just kind of confused me as to why that is. Like, I know it's the emotional part of it, but like, even then, like, I feel like someone who, I guess this was kind of how I thought it before, that someone who was intelligent was inherently emotionally intelligent, and that is not necessarily the case. Because for me, like I said, I'm not necessarily the most book smart person, but I feel like emotional intelligence and picking up on those things and seeing what's being used and how and manipulated in what way, I could pick up like that. But like, where do you think the disconnect is with that? I guess is what my question is. Because again, you're somebody that you are, you went to school, you did your thing, you've done this, you've done that, but also like you have the emotional intelligence and the space for that in your brain, and you've tapped into that to be able to see. It's like, all right, like again, I might not agree with this or I might not align with that, but like I can see where this is coming from. And no, I don't think you're the fucking spawn of Satan because you have a different opinion of me, but like, like we could just agree to disagree and let's go have a beer or whatever. Like it's okay.
I think that not even that. I think there's a difference between being smart and being intelligent. I think those are two different things. So sometimes when I think of being smart as, can I remember facts? Can I regurgitate information?
So more like recall.
Yeah, that's to some level. I feel like that is smart, where I feel like intelligence is kind of that and other things like that, and the ability to kind of step outside of what you believe and then use the other information, use all that recall to make a decision, separate yourself from your emotions. And that's where some of those conversations that I get in get real dicey, because I can tell the person is very emotionally connected to that conversation. Yeah. Granted, I'm sure it has something to do with like where I am on a specific spectrum, am almost always separated from a lot of emotion when it comes to most things. There's like my kid, real tied up in those emotions. Yeah. Like my wife, naturally, very tied up. Like naturally, those two people, like I am emotionally tied to those two human beings as it should be. But I think I'd say 95% of topics, I am not emotionally tied to. I mean, there's certain things where I just won't budge on, like, but I think those are the things that most people won't budge on. Like, I think that, obviously relationships should have an age gap that's appropriate, or, I feel like certain things like that. I don't think very few of us would have an argument against that. I'm sure there's, I think California tried to change the verbiage to like, age attracted human. There was like a weird term they were trying to come up with.
Yeah, I heard of that.
Yeah, but
it's just I mean, it's just shit like that is just, again, like, at a certain point, like, just logic has to step in. And, like, I know that, I mean, extremism, especially in this country, especially in politics and religion to an extent, is very, like, I don't know, I guess popular at this point. Like, it's very, like, in. And me personally, I'm just not very political. Like, I pay attention, but, like, I just think politics is inherently corrupt. So it's hard for me to wrap my arms around any one party or any one, like, I guess, like, ideal, like, just fully, because even with things that I do agree with, there's things in there that it's like, but, like, I can see where there's, for certain situations, there needs to be some wiggle room. Like, it can't just be absolutes and black and white, because life is not black and white. Life is very nuanced, and you can try and put a general cover over something, but inevitably there's going to be an imperfection somewhere, and you got to go figure out what it is. And then, you start turning into a case by case thing, which, when you're dealing with, because a lot of arguments that I hear too is especially about, how the US is right now and compared to other countries that have been countries for thousands of years and have gone through these same exact things multiple times. This is, we're relatively young as a country and have seen a lot of success for the short amount of time that we've been a country, which I think is one thing. Two, a lot of these other countries don't have the same population that we do. It's a lot easier to manage 1 million people, a lot harder to manage 300 million people. What is it, like 350 that we're at right now? Something like that.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So it's like, when you start getting into those higher numbers, I mean, the analogy I use is like, it's hard enough to get two people on the same page. I mean, now, again, multiply times that by however many much. And now, you have, one side of the country that's this way, one side of the country that's that way, or I think this, so that makes you this and that. And it's just, it gets a lot. It gets a lot. Like, you could see how people can get wrapped up in it, especially in your everyday life. You still got to pay bills, you still got to take care of family, you still got responsibilities, you still got all these other things. Now on top of that, every day you're getting told that the world's gonna end, the US fucking blows, we're the fucking worst, we're the reason for the way that everything is. And it's like, I don't know, like, I just feel like if you just look at human history, it's like, this is just us being us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and so even when I think about my education, I remember being a kid, being in high school, there was this kid, Philip Castleberry, nicest guy. Shout outs to Philip Castleberry if you watch
Shout
this.
Out.
And he was very political. Like in high school, there's always that kid.
Yeah.
The kid that wears khakis with his shirt tucked in. You're like, that's it.
Suspended.
Yeah, he's doing like a different thing.
Yeah.
Like he looks like an adult, but he's like 15 years old. There's always that kid. And I just remember, like, man, what's the big deal with this whole politics thing? And then I started to learn a bit about it. And then I realized, the thing with politics and the extremes of the left and the right is what most people don't understand. It's like there really isn't a left and right. It's all the same thing. Like it's the government, the whole entire thing. They are their own system. They're their own. They're not trying to give you anything. Part of that system, and this might be probably like the most. I don't even know how to explain it. This might be. I guess the term would be almost like a sort of hotep opinion about things, is that I don't think that there's a left and a right that's trying to do anything to help anyone.
Not at all.
The extreme left will give the impression that they're trying to help everyone, but through that process, you kind of have to step on somebody to help everybody.
Yep.
Like you can't help everybody. And in the right, it's like their whole thing is kind of everybody needs to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But some people, and I used to push back on this one as well, but now I'm kind of like, yeah, everybody doesn't have bootstraps. Like everybody doesn't have.
We're not dealt the same cards.
Right. But the thing is, we probably don't need to be dealt the same cards. Like but in that same vein, if you kind of think about both ends of that conversation, like if we were all, it's impossible to be on a society level to be equal. It's just impossible. Like, it just doesn't work like that. We're human beings. There's a ton of different things. I mean, the analogy that's often used is like, imagine if you went to the NBA and said that 50% of the NBA needs to be white, or 50% of the NBA needs to be Asian. Like, it just wouldn't. Nobody would watch it anymore. Like, it eventually, eventually it would all, like, it comes back to the mean. Yeah. Eventually, the owners would be like, this doesn't fucking work. Like, nobody's watching basketball anymore. You know, you got two guys that are scoring 80 points a game. The other, the other three are like, oh, we put up like 6 or like it just doesn't work on a societal level. But you also can't have like these giant fluctuations. You also can't have like people who have nothing and then people who have everything. Yeah. And so when you kind of look at those individual data points, you kind of end up somewhere in the middle. And I think on most conversations, you're going to end up somewhere in the middle. Like, there really is no left and right. I guarantee if you sat down someone who said, I am a conservative, and you gave them a list of topics or items that people disagree on from both sides of the spectrum, there's probably a few things where they land somewhere in the middle, or they land somewhere on the far left. Like, we all don't end up on the same side on every single topic. It just doesn't flesh out like that. And you might find some people that will say, no, I agree on every one of these topics. And it's like,
well, there's always outliers. I mean, again, especially, we're talking about 350 million people. There are fucking 8 billion people. And so there's going to be outliers. 2, it's either that, or 2, they're just full of shit. And again, back to the point of like, they're just so attached to the idea of this is right. This is the right side. I'm going to be on the right side of history, and I'm being so righteous. And I think it just it's people, ego and pride is a big thing, which, I mean, I've preached this on this podcast, a billion times, and I'll keep on doing it, that I think psychology needs to be taught more, like at a, middle school, high school level. It needs to be a core class, because it's something that I feel like gets so overlooked. And it's something that you deal with literally every day. Even if it's just with you by yourself, you're still dealing with it, because you deal with yourself every day. Like, you're dealing with people every day. Like, it's something that, you could, like, for me, like, math was just not my subject. 7th grade was where I capped off. And after that, like, math was just a struggle for me. But there are some times where it's like, oh yeah, I remember in math class, such and like, I remember learning that. And like, it just kind of, so imagine taking that, and still, obviously you still keep your math, your science, whatever the fuck, but you add psychology into that. Imagine if you get into, an argument, or you get into a situation where, things are a little bit heated or uncomfortable, or whatever. Oh shit, I remember in fucking 9th grade, 10th grade in psychology class, I learned this. And then like, you're able to tap into that and maybe diffuse the situation instead. But like, I just feel like that is so, like, people don't even know themselves well enough to diffuse themselves, let alone try to diffuse a situation where now somebody else is involved, or another group of people are involved, and things like that. And I think that's just something that needs to be pushed a lot more. And it's hard because, you have to deal with your own demons. You have to deal with, things that you might, have buried away that you have to rehash, or things like that. But then I think that gets you to the point of level-headedness, of logic, because I wasn't always the most level-headed person. Like, I think relatively I was pretty calm and things like that, but I had my moments where I was a hothead. I had phases where I liked to get into fights, and I was fucking, antagonizing people and trying to look for that shit. But then at a certain point, I'm like, all right, well, this isn't really working well for me. Like, I don't, whether, whatever reason, people are thinking I'm an asshole, or I don't have as much friends as I'd like, or whatever the case may be. But, things weren't working. It's like, all right, let me approach this in a different way. Something that might not, if it does come to, we have to fight, so be it. But like, let me try and defuse these situations before it gets to that point. Because again, as you get older, you don't really know what other people know, what they're capable of, what they're willing to do, what they've been through, what's on them, just the different levels of things that go through your head. And, a lot of people nowadays are just so willing to talk shit and just fucking, oh, well, fuck you. And like, just really take it there without knowing what the real repercussions are.
I think people, and I'm married to a teacher, so I have to tread somewhat lightly on these conversations, but we've had these conversations before, but I think the subjects that are taught in school they're taught in a way where it's like you're learning math to learn math, but you're really learning math to come up with solutions. Like that's the goal there. You're learning to read, and you're reading so you can comprehend things. You're not just reading the words and kind of get over the book. So I think some of the things that get left out through American education is the ability to think critically. So that math piece gets left out a little bit because it's like sometimes when you get to higher level math, there's two solutions. There's multiple solutions.
Yeah.
And so I think what gets sort of what gets detached there a little bit is that people need to learn that on any conversation, any disagreement, any debate, whatever it is, you have to go into being able to see both sides, sort of completely freed from your own opinion of those things. And so through that, and that's why a lot of those conversations that are difficult for most people, they might not be as difficult for me, because it's like I understand where you're coming from. And in some of those conversations, like I might even use their own opinion on things and then slowly sort of walk them somewhere into the middle. Yeah. But I think if there's anything that could probably be sort of understood through American education, is like the goal should be not to kind of teach these individual topics themselves. It should be, how do we put all these topics together? Like how do we use math? How do we use the ability to comprehend the things that we read to come up with a concise solution for things? And the other thing is, listening. Listening is the one skill that we are never taught. You're taught as a child, you're taught to speak. Like that's the big thing. Like I can't wait for my child to speak.
Yeah,
like,
first words.
We get excited for someone to speak. As human, a lot of us just really struggle with someone talks, we listen to that information, and then we wait, and then we say something in response. It's almost like somebody's talking, and all you're doing is you're thinking about, like, what am I going to say next? Like, what, I got to come up with something real witty to say or something. I'm going to get this. Here's a gotcha moment. Gotcha. We're always sort of waiting for that bit. I don't know if you've ever seen, like the Dalai Lama speak to someone else, or in an interview, or anybody that's like, anybody that's a monk. They do this thing. If you watch an interview with the Dalai Lama, the interviewer will ask him a question. And then there's almost this uncomfortable pause where he's just not saying anything at all. And he's not saying anything because he's taking all the things that you've said, and then he's kind of thinking about it, and then he's coming up with a response. But you can almost watch the interviewer get a little bit uncomfortable, where they're like, they start moving around their seat a little bit, because we all sort of struggle with that silence in between. It's because we're so used to kind of, I need to fill this space with something to say. Yeah. And so when people get into these heated conversations or these debates, where they're having two different opinions on things, I think it's during that silence is when they could have an opportunity to kind of see, like, listen to what the person said, take all that information in, and sometimes you might go, like that's it. I did not think about that way. But because people are just listening, they're just hearing. They're hearing noises. It's like Charlie Brown. It's like womp womp womp. And they're like, I can't wait. I can't wait until I tell you this.
You know what's funny? I mean, the fact that you bring that up is that if sometimes people like bring up points that don't even make sense with the conversation for that exact reason. It's like, what? Like, where did that come from? Like, we weren't even talking about that. But they'll bring up points or like gotcha moments or slams just for that. And it's like, oh, so we're not really talking then. You're just, you just want to hear yourself talk. There's like, that's what's going on at this point, which is, I think, part of it is through the education system right now. I do think part of it is kind of like, we're trying to put out workers and not necessarily thinkers. And, I think, I don't necessarily disagree with that completely, because some people's role is just to be a worker, like, and that's it. And that's fine, because every role is important. Like even in a watch, like there's these little gears, you know, yeah, you see the hand and you see the face, the numbers, but you don't see all the little gears that are working inside that are making that watch work. And if you take that little gear out, watch doesn't work anymore. I mean, same thing with a car. You know, there's so many different things. Yeah, you need to put gas in it, but you need to have oil in that bitch. You need to make sure that the fucking, you know, I'm not really a car guy, so that's kind of where my car knowledge is. But you get what I'm trying to say. Yeah. But it's like, you know, you take one thing out and the car doesn't work anymore. It doesn't go. So it's like, you know, you need that level of, you know, yes, we want to build leaders and we want people to think and we want, you know, everybody to think critically and think for themselves, but also, you know, understand yourself and work within yourself and understand what your role is and things like that. But I think part of, you know, back to that point, I think part of the reason is, you know, people aren't really teaching to, and I feel like nowadays too, because I mean now, you know, I have cousins that are, you know, just now getting older, you know, 20, one of my cousins, he's 16, and, you know, you kind of see how people just, you know, are just passing people along and not necessarily taking their time to like, all right, like, well, why are you struggling with this? Like, why is it that this subject, you know, you're doing good in this, but what is the disconnect here? Not necessarily taking the time to, you know, figure out what's making this individual tick to then set them up for the best future that they could have or whatever the case may be. And, you know, then that kind of leads into, I guess, the entitlement part of it, or the, you know, just, well, I've showed up, so like, where's my reward type thing. And, you know, life is not that. And, you know, when you send people into the world like that, it is a harsh reality check that, you know, that, you know, it worked in, you know, at high school and middle school and all that shit, but, you know, fucking Joe Schmo that owns his own company is not going to let that shit slide, because now you're fucking with his money, you're fucking with his time. Yeah, maybe he might not have the same educate or whatever, but like, he's built a life out of that, and now, you know, now he's the boss and he don't give a fuck. So like, you better fucking figure it out real quick, or this shit's going to be hard for you. And you know, I don't think that the way that things are in place right now, especially in school, especially, you know, just the generation that's coming up underneath me and that, it's like, things are just so like, they need things right now, right away. There is no sense of like, I don't know, like, I guess working for what you have, or like building foundational like things as far as, again, like communication, listening, you know, understanding, you know, things like that. And it just, I think it feeds into what the elites and the higher ups want to kind of keep everybody like, so it keeps it easier to divide people and separate the power, or separate them, so then they have power up there, and, you know, they're just fighting amongst themselves up top to keep power and shit like that.
Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of it, and I love technology. I'm a dork. I love computers. I need all the newest shit all the time. Like, I love tech. I remember being a freshman at Rollins, and I was thinking about that on the ride here. I was thinking about, like, I'm from the generation where I can say before Google. Like, I can remember where Google didn't exist. There was no like, I'm going to go to Google and look something up. You know, there was Netscape, which was Google-ish. It was like, but there was far less information on the internet. But I just remember the first time I typed something in the search bar and it spit out some information, and I was just like, holy shit. Like, this is amazing. This is the most amazing thing ever. But I feel like technology, especially social media, I've almost become the old man. You know, I'm 46 years old now. I've almost become the old man that's like, that dislikes, so like, I feel like social media could be the thing that brings down society to some extent.
No,
I
for
feel
sure.
like that is the reason why our attention spans are so short. That's the reason why we can't communicate. We don't have conversations in person anymore. We argue. The majority of our arguments happen on the internet.
On the screen. Yeah, with no repercussion either. And that's the thing, like, you know, kind of back to the point of like, you know, people just think that they could say shit and there's no repercussion. You know, if you say something in public and someone doesn't like it, you might get fucking punched in the face. And that, I mean, and but that will stop a lot of people from just saying and doing what the fuck they want because of that fear of like, oh, well, I can't really defend myself. So, I'm just going to chill, have a good time. Like we're all out just to have a drink and party, dance, whatever the fuck. But like, I think the lines between social media and reality are so blurred right now. Like it was a point where, and it still is that people will just fucking say whatever the fuck they want. And there still is a level of like cordialness in like public and things like that. But you look at, just some of the riots that go on or, things that happen. I haven't been in downtown Orlando, but if you just watch the fucking news and shit like that, or even if you just, just go out to dinner, the fucking Chili's or something, you just hear some of it. It's just like, oh man, like, that disconnect is very, very, maybe not as slowly, but it's closing very quickly. And it's like, where, at what point is it all going to come to a boiling point where, like you said, like things are going to just start getting fucking weird and going down like in a way that people think they're ready for, but none of us are really ready for.
Yeah. I think we're at, it's things have only gotten, you would have thought that after 2020 and everybody kind of got, kind of released back into the wild, you would think that like, by now we'd be back to air quotes normal, and we haven't it's just gotten progressively worse. And some people could blame, the current administration. There's a lot of things that you could blame. And surely the current administration doesn't help.
Not at all.
That's for sure. But the previous administration, that didn't help.
Well, I think to that point, people have been, they want to point the finger to Donald Trump and it's him and this, that, whatever. And, when I get into conversations about this and things like that, it's like, well, in the conversation, and I'll let people talk and they'll kind of explain my point for me. And they'll say, well, in this administration, and they're talking about the Bush administration or the Clinton administration or the Reagan administration. So it's like, all right, so you're telling me these things have been going on, but in the same sentence, you're telling me that it's all Donald Trump's fault. Well, then which one is it? Like, it can't be both. Like, if these are things that have been going on and, to me, and again, I'm not very political. I think, again, like I said, I think it's, a crock of shit. It's hard for me to wrap my arms around something that I feel like is inherently corrupt. But, and I don't even want to say to give credit because I know people are going to fucking come for my ass. But, in a sense, like the first time that Trump was in office, it really showed the corruption within politics. Like we all knew it was there, but people were just kind of like, oh, like, and especially with Obama because he was such a cool guy and, very charismatic, very like suave and, very likable guy as far as personality and shit like that. People were like, oh, well, no big deal, whatever. But like, all that corruption was still going on. All the, the rich getting richer, the poor getting poor, like all those things were still going on. Trump gets into office and kind of it starts exposing, well, yeah, I was doing these things, but so were the people that you were voting for. So were the people that you thought were these righteous, great politicians that are just looking out for the greater good of everybody and things like that. And it's like, no, they're shiesty too. They're filling their pockets up with your money too, like, and not helping you out with it. So to me, it was like, again, you don't have to like the guy. You don't have to like his politics. You don't like that the way that he carries himself. But in a way, he exposed to everybody the type of corruption that was going on. And I'm somebody that I don't have to like you, but I do give credit where credit is due. And that's something that, again, a lot of people, and I'm 31, so I'm kind of a little bit newer into the, how the political things work and things like that. But, when I was younger, I would, hear people like, when you would talk about like political corruption, it was like conspiracy theories. Oh, you're a fucking tinfoil hat guy and all this other things. But it like, all right, fast forward, 10, 20 years, like, oh no, that shit was actually kind of fucking true. Like, so like, again, you could be mad at the guy and not like the guy. But again, like it helped expose a lot of things that we as people, as the citizens didn't like and, thought were going on. but didn't really have any concrete evidence. And now it's out there. So now, again, make your decisions based on that. But, just to point the finger to one person and put all the blame on one person, to me, again, is just very, it's very elementary and very just a lazy, easy way out of, instead of, again, looking at the greater scope of things, looking at everything in its totality and looking at it from a macro view and not just from your little cylinder of vision, which, again, we're all guilty of it. I'm not saying that I haven't done it myself, but, part of that is I saw that I was doing it. All right, well, let me go do my own. Let me just go read an article on my own. Nobody around me. I have no bias except my own, and I know what my biases are. So then I can kind of look at it. All right, I understand this is what I'm biased about. Now let me remove this and see what this actually is. And if it's still the same thing, bet. But chances are, oh shit, like you said, okay, it is a little different than what I thought. My bias, you don't really realize how much your biases cloud your judgment until you're able to remove them and see that's why I was so attached to this shit, because I was just so biased against it and shit like that.
No, I think that's a good point to make, is that a lot of these conversations require, or at least to have a balanced conversation, you need to either address the fact that you are biased to certain things or make an attempt to remove your bias from your opinion on things, which that's hard to do. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of those conversations during 2020, it was, it's I had to remove the fact that I am black from some of those conversations. But then in that same vein, it's I had to remove the fact that I'm married to a white woman. So it's I had to remove, let me remove all of my shit from my opinions on things. And that was, at times, that was the thing that often brought up more issues with people, because they're how can you remove the fact that you're a black man and then have these opinions on things?
Yeah.
And it was just because I looked at all the information, and I have to remove myself. If I'm looking at data, it's either that I'm going to say that all this data is bullshit and they've made all these things up. And sometimes in data, you can find that some of it is bullshit. Often, especially, any sort of scientific literature, it's often written through a lens. It's often written through the lens of the person that wrote it. They want to deliver a message. And so they'll give you the data in a way that supports their message. And sometimes that's where I would find sort of the best sort of nuggets of disagreement with certain things, where I'd say here's a paper that agrees with your topic, that agrees with your assertion on something. Mm-hmm. But if you tease out this bit, that you highlight this little bit of this conversation, this person that wrote this is literally saying that this is what's happening. What the rest of this paper is saying is either possibly not true or just not true at all. There were certain words where, people used, the big one was rate, the rate in which something was happening. And so people thought rate equals number, the proportion of the way things are happening. No, this is just the frequency in which something, it's two different things. But the person that wrote this is insinuating, they're hoping that you don't understand how what the word rate means.
Yeah, they're preying on your fucking ignorance.
Yeah. So if you would understand what rate means, you would look at this entire conversation in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get really jammed up. The Trump thing it's a area of contention for me at times, because it's I didn't vote for Trump the first time. Because I was this is the guy from television. I grew up, what I'm saying?
You're fired.
I grew up with and the funny thing about Trump is I'm from the generation where Trump was in every hip hop video. Yeah. He's in a million rap verses. Yeah. He's not, if I will say this. People will say that Donald Trump is racist. If he's a racist, he's fucking terrible at it. Like, he's a horrible racist because you don't surround yourself. Yeah. You don't put yourself in that many situations around black, unless you have that idea of like, keep your enemies closer, this sort of situation.
Yeah, unless he was plotting this shit from like,
unless he's playing fucking chess.
But even to that point, I mean, the same people that are saying he's racist are saying he's an idiot. So if he's an idiot, then he's not planning 20, 30, 40 years ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, like,
again, like, you don't have to like the guy, but like, there's a lot of people that I'm not necessarily fond of. Again, that I can respect certain things about them, or like understand that, oh, like, yeah, I don't like him, but he's not fucking stupid. He's not an idiot. Or yeah, I don't like him, but you know, with sport, I played a lot of sports growing up. It's like, yeah, I don't necessarily like this dude, yeah, but he's fucking good as fuck at what he does. Like, yeah, I have to defend him, and I think he's an asshole and he talks shit, but if I'm not doing what I need to do, he's going to fucking do my ass up and embarrass me. So it's like, it literally, like, it's essentially the same thing, like in anything. Like, you don't have to like somebody, but like, again, part of just being aware and just being like understanding, and yeah, I don't like Donald Trump, but he knows how to rile people up. He's a charismatic guy. He knows what he's saying. He knows how he's saying it, just like most politicians. Like again, like, you know, people hate when you throw any type of bad, you know, any type of dirt on Obama's name. But, you know, he was cool dude. The way that he presented himself was great. But if you look at his run as president, it's not like he was the greatest president ever either.
What do they call him? Bomb strike Barry?
Or Osama
drone strike Barry?
Something like that. Barack Obama, like shit like that. But it's like, and again, like, he is a cool dude. That I probably would like to fucking have a little drink with him and spend a day with him. He'd probably be cool as fuck, but he did some fucking flawed ass shit. And hey, that comes with the job though. That comes with that type of territory. That comes with being a politician. Like, and that also goes into part of the reason why I'm not really into politics, and especially at that high of a level. Like you mentioned it, you alluded to it in the beginning of the podcast. Like, once you get to that level of politics and that level really of anything, like, inevitably you're going to have to shit on people, step over people, do some shit that is probably immoral, and people are going to look at you a little differently. But, you know, the benefit of being at that level in any field, at any industry, is that you usually have people that got your back. You usually have people that are looking to get you in that position. One, probably because it's going to benefit them, but two, because, and especially in politics, because people are looking to get their party in power. It doesn't really matter. And that kind of, we were able to see that too with this last one with to me, I thought Bernie Sanders should have been the Democratic Party, but they didn't want to because they didn't really align. But like, if you look at what the Democratic Party says they are, I keep on calling him Barry. Bernie is that. He embodies that completely. But because they didn't think it was gonna get them the win or get their person or get their party in office, Joe, you're up. And it's like, bro, what the fuck? Like, what? So it's like, it is kind of, you know, it's things like that it's like, again, I'm not very political. But like, it's things that are just that blatant that people are just ignoring. And I'm like, how?
Yeah, I think the Bernie Sanders thing is interesting because it's like, it goes back to the idea that there isn't necessarily two parties. There really is just the one party, because Bernie was 100% about, I'm taking everybody's money. You got too much money, I'm taking some.
Yeah. He embodied what the Democratic Party says they are, and what people think that they are.
But there's a bunch of people from the Democratic Party that have a bunch of money. So they're like, well, yeah, Bernie, that's cool and all, but...
You want to take my money too? What the fuck?
But not my money. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you know, it's all, they all have their own agenda. And it's not ours, typically.
No,
you know,
not at all.
Very few of them are overly concerned about, you know, I think the origination of the United States was formed by, or the government was formed by, you know, the working class. It wasn't somebody who, you know, went to school, became a lawyer. You know, it wasn't that person. It was the person that was in the field. Okay? So it's so far removed from the thing, like the project itself of the United States is so far removed from what it was supposed to be that it's almost unrecognizable from what it was supposed to be. It's like the reason why we're in the situation we are now is because the experiment has grown past what it probably should have been to some degree. Like it's gotten so far away from what it originated as that it's just a different thing altogether. Like it was never meant to be. It was never meant to be the situation where you have like 80-year-old dudes making decisions for the rest. Like they, actually Barack Obama.
I was just about to say, I saw that post that you put on Instagram. He made a comment
that basically said like a lot of the reasons why the world is in the position that it is now is because there are a bunch of 80-year-old men who are concerned about their legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're the ones making the decisions. And so that should not, I love my mother-in-law. She is the best. But I don't know if I want her making decisions about the country. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, if you ask any 80-year-old person, like, if you show me most 80-year-old people and were to say, hey, would you want that person to make a bunch of, like, very intense decisions that could affect millions of people? They'd go, no, like, absolutely not. There's a reason why we voted for Barack Obama, because he was, like, young and, he was, like, hip and, like, this cool dude.
Yeah.
And that was the majority of his draw. And then, like, after that, we get Joe Biden. It's like, now you're just walking around this corpse. Like, you're back to like the old dudes.
Yeah.
And even Donald Trump, old dude. So it's like, and then if you look at the majority, like Pelosi's 197, like you get all these old people.
Yeah. It just didn't make sense in that sense, because a lot of what the left was saying was, well, the reason that we're in this, to your point, is because we have a lot of old white racist people that are in office. And then you go roll out again, Joe Biden. It's just like,
and Joe Biden at one point in time, he said
he was for segregating schools, and this was in the 80s.
He said that what did he say? He said something about black. It was like a zoo, or he called a certain area that was predominantly black. He called it like a jungle or something like.
Nice.
He has said, Joe Biden has said and done some just wildly racist shit, like in public. Has like there's statements, there's videos you can pull up of him saying.
Well, I mean, and kind of on a lighter note, but I got into it with somebody because and I think this was around this time last year when, with election time and all that when Donald Trump said that, the immigrants are taking black jobs or whatever the fuck like that. And I forget who exactly I was with, but they're like, oh, well, that's racist. Like, what is a black job? And this, all that, and the third. I'm like, well, Joe Biden went on to the Breakfast Club and said, if you don't vote for me, you're not black, which is fucking wild, because that is like a black show. Like, this black culture is rap hit, like, and what, like, and that, but they were trying to argue that that's not racist.
And there was very little pushback on
I'm like, well, no, if what Donald Trump said is racist, then this has to be racist, because you're making assumptions off of people's skin color. Well, one, I kind of think what Joe Biden said would be considered a little bit more racist, because he's literally saying, no, you're not black if you don't vote for me. Like, which is
he didn't
insane.
Even say you're not. He said, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. Like, he
tried to pander, which is, it's just, but it's wild how people, and that's kind of what I was, kind of talking about in the beginning, where it's like people are just like the smartest people, the most intelligent people will just blatantly just ignore like just certain truths. It's like, this is not me like trying to convince you one side is better than the other. This is like, well, this is your argument. Okay, well then if that's your argument, and you're by your word and you say you're such, this person and a moral upstanding person, then by those standards, then this is also racist. So then you can still vote for the guy. Like, I'm not going to fucking shun you and shit on you for voting for the guy, but like, just look at everything. Like, there was, it just, when people were trying to tell me that there's a right and a wrong side, I'm like, no. Like, and again, to your point, like, none of them are for us. Like, the analogy that I love to use is that both Republicans and Democrats are both snakes. The only difference is that a Republican is a snake on the sidewalk that you can see. A Democrat is a snake in the grass that is using smoke and mirrors to make you think that they're not a snake and they're not going to bite you. But at the end of the day, it's a snake and it's still going to bite you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I just rather, and again, I just rather in my general life, I'd rather just know what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the politics conversation just gets it gets to be a little bit much. I think people have a really hard time removing themselves from whatever they feel like they need to be attached. It's just very hard, and often it's you typically find that conservatives tend to be religious to some extent. Like that's just because they tie a lot of their decisions based off of religion. That's just, and Democrats tend to be the complete opposite of that. They're like, we're not making any of our decisions based off of this old dated book. And I think if you were to kind of look at it logically, and this is me saying this as a, I'm a Catholic, or I was raised Catholic. I wouldn't consider myself a Catholic, but I was raised Catholic. Yeah. My son is being raised as a Catholic. There's some things you could say about it. You could say that, like, why are you making decisions based off of a book that was written at a time that is in no way, shape, or form semblance to now? But you could also say that a lot of the reasons why we're in the situation that we're in is because people don't have anything to attach themselves to. They don't have a religion to attach themselves to. So they've created these religions, whether it be racism or whether it be, their political opinion. Like they've created their own religion. So it's like you can make an argument for both of those sides at the same time. But at the end of the day, we should all find a way to probably end up somewhere closer to the middle. Yeah. Because I mean, it's still early. I mean, it's wild to think that Donald Trump has been the president for 9 months or something.
It seems a lot. Yeah, it's been fucking wild.
It's been 7 years. I'm like, oh my god, how long is this gonna last?
One down, 3 more to go.
I'm like, holy shit! It's 3 more years of how crazier could this get? But I don't know if it's like you said. Like he got voted in because he wasn't the thing that came before him. People can say whatever they want, but the majority of the population said that we don't want what we've had before. We're done with that. And even now, people said we don't want what we had before. There's a reason why there were more voters now than there were in the past. The previous election, not as many voters. More now because people are like, we're fucking done. Like whatever was going on the past 4 years, we're done with that. We need something else.
Well, I mean, I think the issue with the left is that, again, they try to portray themselves as this, righteous and inclusive and we love everybody and things like that. But then the second that you say something that might not line up, or the second that it just seemed very quick to turn on you. And I've had conversations with people on both sides, and, I've had good conversations with people on both sides. I've had bad conversations with people on both sides. Based off my experience, I have had more bad conversations with people that lean more left than I do right. And not to say that I haven't had bad conversations and things that it's just, this shit's just not going anywhere. But it just seems to me that it's a lot more emotion based. And although I do think emotion is a very important thing, we all have them. It needs to be taken into consideration. You can't necessarily, especially when it comes to running a country, running a business, running something where you're in charge of people and, the outcome of how people are going to be living and things like that. You have to take emotion out of it. Not saying that, I'm all for it, if you're gay and you want to marry another dude, or you want to marry another chick, or if you want to adopt a kid, all those other, go for it. But I do think there has to be a limit on certain things. And when especially, I think where it started getting weird is when the whole with the kids and the transgender stuff, and the hormone blockers and letting kids decide what they were. And I think there were some instances in Canada where if you didn't report that your kid was transgender or anything, that they could take them away from you and things like that, where it's just like, whoa.
Like enough's enough. That is one of the places where I think I do plant my flag to some degree, because I'm a parent. Yeah. So at the end of the day, it's like, leave kids out of it. Right. My kid has thought that he has been a ton of different shit in his 7 years, a ton of different things.
When I was 7 years old, every other week, my dad would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up. Every other week, it was a fireman, a policeman, a rock star, a soccer. It was every week it was changing. So it's like, duh. I'm 7 years old. I don't know anything. Of course, that's my brain is just gonna be running wild. And if you go with that and let children make decisions and like they're adults, the consequences to that are a lot more extreme than I think people that had that thought process wanted to believe.
Yeah, it's like, I think about, and we were talking about that earlier. It's like, as a parent, you're constantly thinking, like, am I fucking up my kid? Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like, people make those decisions and they're not thinking, man, am I going to fuck my kid up?
Right.
Especially with the hormone blocker thing. I don't know where the people I don't know what papers they've read.
That's just wild.
I don't know those are the papers where it's very black and white.
Yeah.
You can
science is science at a certain point.
It's not a reversible thing. That's it. Like you've done it. You've stopped all their hormonal production that would point them into the direction that they were biologically meant to be. You're stopping. There's no reversing that. There's no coming back and going, oh my bad. Now you want to be okay. Now you can be that thing.
Right.
You're stopping that. You're making a decision for them that they're not equipped to make. And then you're going to have to deal with those repercussions as their parent later on in life. If things go, regardless of whether or not you think you're right or wrong, imagine if you're very wrong. And then you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to look at your child for the rest of their lives, or the rest of your life. Because, hopefully, you live longer than or your child lives longer than you do, but you're going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And just like, this is what I did. I did this because I allowed my child to do it. And I'm not saying that there are some children that are true. And I've met some people who have transitioned. I just go, yep, that's who you need to be.
Well, and that's the thing too, like drinking alcohol, like smoking weed, like smoking cigarettes. Like, I'm not saying no, we can't do this at all. Like, put an age limit on it.
Yeah.
When you turn 18, when you turn 20, when you turn 21, whatever, like if you still feel like that when you're 21 and you still feel like you want to transition or do whatever, take home, whatever the case may be, by all means, you're a fucking adult now.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on record as like, we should just make all drugs, at least decriminalize them. I know they tried that in Portland. It didn't really work out too well.
It is a wild, this is probably like sidebar. We went to Seattle. We went to Alaska. So we had to stay in Seattle on the way there. And then on the way back in Seattle had that experiment where they basically made everything. It was decriminalized. Yeah. And their idea was, we are going to offer therapy to everyone. So we could get them to using drugs in a safe manner and at least keep them from using dirty needles. And there were times where I'm walking down the street with my son and there's people just sleeping, standing up, leaning up against building. And my son's like, what's up with that guy? I'm like, oh, Daddy, when he works sometimes, he's just tired. Yeah, that guy's tired too. Those experiments, they just don't work. And that side of the country it's wild out there. I didn't realize it was that wild till I went there. I was like, oh, it is exactly as advertised on the news. Yeah. It's very similar. But I think kids need to be left out of it.
Because I mean, sorry to cut you off, but I also don't think that you need to put the 10 Commandments in every classroom either. Right. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm not for or against either side. I just like, to your point, like teach them what they need to be taught, but like you don't need to impose your ideas and what you feel like is right on your kids or project that shit onto your kids. It's like they're their own person. I mean, and it can either really go one of both ways. Like either they'll fall right in line with you and it work, or they're just going to go the exact opposite because it's like you've been force feeding them this shit their whole life and not letting them think for themselves, not letting them develop these thoughts and ideas and let them become their own person and then let them figure it out from there. But like guide them obviously and along the way. You're their parent, but like you gotta, at a certain point, you just gotta let your kid be their own person. And I'm sure, I don't have any kids, so I'm sure it's a lot easier said than done. But like I feel like with most people that I talk to that have kids, that's usually like kind of the general, idea is like, I want to be there, I want to make sure I provide for them and I want them to be their own person.
Yeah, I mean that's the big thing. I mean, I look at my son and he looks like me. He moves like me. He smiles like me. Like he does a ton of things like me. He does a lot of things like his mom, but he's still his own person. Like he's still, and I'm never going to try to, and I catch myself doing it where I'm like, you do it almost without thinking about it. You're like impressing your thing on your kid. And kids are often super susceptible to that because they're like, if daddy likes this, I like it too.
Yeah.
My dad liked cars. I also like cars. Like my dad liked to dress a certain way. I also like to, so.
Yeah, I mean, you're so impressionable at that age.
There's certain things that do stick. But those were the things that like my dad didn't impress on me. I picked up those things just because I was like, I like those. I just inherently like those things at the same time. Religion's a tough one because it's like, when I talk to my son about religion, he goes to a Catholic school, and I was raised Catholic, and the one thing that my mom did that I can say out of all the things that she did as a mother, the one thing she did was she always taught me like, it's a good story and it could be a true story, but either way, it's often the same story.
Yeah.
Regardless of what religion you go to, it's a very similar story. And you can probably boil it down to like a few words, like just don't be an asshole. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Don't take things that aren't like it's. You can boil all down to very
general life rules.
Yeah, like a few small edicts at the end of the day. Like it doesn't. In my relationship with a religion is a very weird one at times. But we don't need to necessarily impress the things on our children that we want, but we also need to just protect our children in general. I mean, the big argument for me at one point in time, and I think it's because I grew up just like you, I grew up as an athlete. There was a weird thing where the left was like, we support women, but we also support biological males competing with women.
Which is like a complete contradiction.
So you can't do both of those things. Like you can't say like, okay, I want women to succeed, to be successful in sports, but then I'm also going to put this 6.5-foot man on the same basketball court as them, and then possibly like take scholarship opportunities from them because it needs to be fair. Like eventually the tough part with the left is you can't be compassionate to everybody. You're gonna step on somebody.
You can
else.
only be so fair.
Yeah. You can't take, there's like conversations. I got into conversations about like reparations where people are like, oh, well, black people. I'm like, so you basically what you're saying is you should take things from white people, then give them to black people. Isn't that inherently racist? Like, isn't that like, what do we tell? Like, if you can tell me that isn't racist, like remove all of your ideas of how this should work, your ideas about slavery, remove it all and just look at the pure concept of taking something from some race and then giving it to another one. Is that racism? Like, yes or no? And you can't say no because it is. It's racist. Like you're making a decision based off of somebody else's, of somebody's skin color. Right. Yep. So those are those arguments that people often get into, and often it's with the left where it's like you cannot just make your decisions on a very
matter of fact type of things,
right, without thinking about who's on the other end of this decision. Like you're gonna have to make a decision one way or other. You just cannot make everybody happy, unfortunately. Like that's just the way it is. You can't appease to every group.
Impossible.
As much as you would like
to.
And
I think that's part of the issue too, is that like, because I feel like most people are socially are left and fiscally are conservative. I feel like most people kind of fall into that category. But again, to your point, like, when it starts just kind of very black and white and to the reparations thing and like, or the transgender stuff even the immigration stuff, like it just seems like they're trying to put it like this is the answer and this is going to fix everything, and like just completely ignore everything has a repercussion, everything has consequences, every action has a reaction. So like, yes, like sure, let people in, like this is what this country was built on, like, but in that there has to be certain guidelines. Yes, if you want to transition, by all means, but we're not gonna involve my 7-year-old child into this because like what the fuck, like he barely knows how to wipe his own ass, like what is going on? It's so wild. And things like that. I mean, with the reparation stuff and things like that, sure, like if you can trace your family lineage and things like that, I'm all for it. But just to simply because I'm black, no, like there's tons of black people that have moved over here from, still to this day that are still moving over here.
There's a lot of those conversations that I get into when it comes to the tricky part about reparations that most people don't think about is that it's first of all, it's tough you can't just say because you're black, you came from West Africa.
Right.
You were part of the slave trade. There's no records of most of these things. So that's a difficult thing to come up to a solution to, or come to it like, you get this amount of money. And then you have to think about what do you think that like if white people are the oppressors, do you think the oppressor is going to be cool with you taking all their money? Like, how do you think it's going to work out? Right. Like, if there's a such thing as systemic racism, do you think the system's going to be cool with you just taking all their money?
Like oh yeah,
yeah. If they are in control of like the strongest military in the world, they're going to be cool with you just taking all their money. Like, it just doesn't.
I think people kind of lose sight of that too. It's like they're just kind of on their side and don't think of how the other person is gonna, or how the other side is gonna. Like you said, they're just going to give things up. Like, I mean, for the gun thing, for example, the gun stuff, it's like, when people were saying, oh, like, they're just going to come and take all our guns and shit like that. And blah, it's like, how is that going to work? Like, you think people, do you think people are really just going to come to your door and just take all your guns?
The big thing is, do you know how many fucking guns there are in America?
Right.
Like, hey, do you know how many guns haven't been sold in America? Like, just sitting on shelves. Like, we're going to just get rid of all those guns? Like, where are all those guns going to go? But do you think criminals are not going to be able to get these guns? Like, it sounds great in theory, but you think about when you try to make some of these things actionable, they just cannot pan out. Like, they just will not work. It's again very difficult for people to think about. People like the systemic racism conversation. I get into this conversation at least once a month with a buddy of mine, long Facebook messages back and forth. And he always brings it up. And I'm like, where's this? Like, what is the system? Like, where is it? And he says, well, and he spits off a bunch of stuff. And then I bring up some facts. Like, so if there's a system that's only holding black people down, right? Black people in general, like anybody that's black, think about West Indian people. Bahamas, Jamaica, they all look black. The system would see them as black people. But they have somewhere between 10 and 20% more wealth than American black people. So what you're saying is the system only affects people that are from like American black people. That's it. Like it like pinpoints, let all the West Indian black people in, let them take all the money.
Yeah, we're good with them.
But all the rest of you, motherfucker, like
all the ones that were born here that are actually American, it's like, yeah, fuck you guys. Yeah, I mean,
it's just a wild conversation. Like the slavery conversation is difficult because if you bring up that slavery, it wasn't an American institution; it was a global institution.
Well, and that's something that and just strip it down to take out the race, take all of that. I mean, it's just a natural thing. People go take over lands, take prisoners. They usually kill the men and enslave the women and children.
It's just an unfortunate
and that is just how life has been going. Human history. You can go back to when civilization was starting over in the Middle East and that the fucking what's his name, Genghis Khan over there. I mean, Andy, the Romans, the fucking Greeks, the Spanish. That's what people do. That is what people do. Yeah, it doesn't matter what race, what language you speak, how tall, how short, that's what people do. People are colonizers.
Yeah.
They're going to get people to do the hard work for them so then they can sit up and chill and live in luxury and take the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Like it's like
it's like you think about the reason why we're concerned that Russia has so many nuclear warheads, cuz you think like, okay, if you shoot a nuke, you're just gonna kill, like we're gonna kill everybody.
Yeah.
Like everybody's gonna be dead. The reason why the primary concern with Russia is Russia has more nuclear weapons, so they can target more places. So the thought is you blow up as many people as you possibly can, and then you hide. And then you come out when, the nuclear fallout is all gone away and we can inhabit the planet again. Yeah. And then you start taking all the shit again. That's the goal, is like level the playing field and then start the whole thing. And now you have more of the shit. It's just how it's an unfortunate part.
It's a vicious cycle
of the human experience.
We just get more sophisticated over time, but it's literally the same thing. And, part of the, I think part of the issue here in this country, as far as that topic, I feel like since all of our basic needs are met pretty regularly, food, shelter, water, things like that, your brain is inherently going to put different problems in your head. Or, so the rich guy, all right, well, I'm rich, I have everything covered, but what if this happens? I need to have a little bit more money. I need to have a little bit more food. So then you kind of start taking from there, and you start creating your own problems. When before, like, our problems were, it's like, how am I going to feed myself today? And that was the problem every day. Now, when you eliminate that problem, it's like, oh, well, instead of how am I going to feed myself? Well, what am I going to eat today? Do I want, a hamburger or a hot dog? And then once you get those problems figured out, it's like, you just start filling your brain inherently is going to start filling up things with problems, because we still have that primal part in us, the instinctual stuff, the hunter-gatherer type, biological wiring inside of us. We're just now seeing it through the 2025 lens, where, again, like, I'm able to get a nice apartment and I don't have to worry about sleeping under a tree, or if I am, like, is a fucking bear gonna come and maul me in my fucking sleep? Like, nah, like, my issues are, it's like, damn, I'm a little hot. I'm glad I have this cooling comforter, because I overheat a little bit when I sleep. Like, those are the issues that, most Americans are dealing with.
Those are good. That's a good point, because I often boil down, when I was working in exercise science or training in general, I boiled everything down to like an evolutionary biology standpoint. And so that's a good point, that, like, we are no longer fighting for food, trying to fight off famine. We're not running from saber-toothed cats anymore. We're not doing any of that shit. Yeah. Like, so we're trying to find, and I guess the stress still affects us the same way as if we are still running away from things. It's almost like we need stressors as people to, like, either push us towards things or push us away from things. But now, because we don't have those natural stressors of things trying to eat us, or, most of us, I mean, I don't think very many people are concerned about getting eaten, but I think maybe there might be some people that are, like, trying not to get eaten. But
fucking weird cult or something. Like that.
And there's surely some people that don't have any food. That's a thing as well. But the vast majority of us don't need to worry about either one of those things. So it's almost like we're inherently looking for that. So, like, I need something to be stressed out.
I mean, but you even see homeless people now. They have full fucking phones.
Man,
they have money. I mean, they're camping out in their little things, but they could go to fucking 7-Eleven.
You can't even call them homeless. They have to call them unhomed.
Unhomed.
Yeah, how dare
I didn't even know that.
How
shit.
dare you?
Damn, I'm out of touch.
But yeah, that's funny you bring that up. There's a group of the unhomed in Sanford, and they're known for, like, if you try to give them something that isn't money, they'll, like, yell at you. Like, they're upset. Like, how dare you?
Damn.
Not give me some cash. Like,
Man, again, like, I think that just kind of further proves my point that the homeless are even, like, bougie and, like, selective. It's like, you don't even have a house. I'm good with my little tent and my mattress or whatever, but, like,
yeah,
don't give me that burger. Like, give me cold hard cash. Like, that's what I want. But they have full phone plans, this, that, and the third. Like, they have a whole little community. And what really kind of, I knew it was a thing, but, like, these homeless encampments and stuff like that. So when I was working for the landscaping division in Walmart, they started it up in 2019, and they hadn't merged yet. So it was a company called City Facilities Management, and it was based out of Ireland, and they were, like, expanding. It started with HVAC stuff and things like that, but they expanded, and then they tried the landscaping division here. That's where they started it in Florida, Central Florida more specifically. And cleaning up the outside of these Walmart parking lots and things like that, like, man, like, they had whole communities, like tents, little, like, social, like, the campfire type. Like, it was like a little society with just of homeless people. And you really start seeing, like, it's no different than us going, we have the apartment complexes around, and then you have kind of like the shopping centers and things like that. I mean, it was essentially the same thing, just, like, dumbed down to the bare necessities. But that is just what people are like. At a certain point, like, people are going to come together, figure out how we're gonna do things and how we're gonna survive and things like that. And once those basic needs are met, then that's where you start seeing, people being, I guess, bougie, or, like, looking for creating their own problems, or you see dissension amongst people because it's like, oh, well, kind of keeping up with the Joneses type thing. Well, this person has this. Well, like, I got to show that I am the fucking shit.
It's, like,
and all
just
that.
a lack of gratitude. And it's, I know that's very sort of woo woo kind of like, but that's the big thing. I think that's a lot. It's a very large part of where people go wrong. It's like they lack the ability to be grateful for the things that they have. Mm-hmm. We aren't. I've been worried about a saber-toothed cat my entire life. I've never once thought that something was going to eat me out. I don't spend, much to my wife's chagrin, I don't spend a ton of time. She loves being in the outdoors, and I'm kind of like, I will do it because you like to do it. But I've never been overly concerned about not having food, or even in the toughest part of my life, like the toughest little bits of my life, there was always like a can of baked beans.
Yeah, like I know I could get my hands on something.
Yeah, there was always some food. I think often where these conversations get real sideways, that people don't realize how well they have it, and so they start sort of this infighting about, which is basically most of it's just nonsense. Like, why are we arguing about these things?
That victim mentality type thing too. I feel like that's kind of, we've created that. There's, again, like, and again, I'm guilty of it as well. Like I have a nice place. I have goals. I have a car. I'm able to, lay my head on a nice, comfortable bed, all these other things. But then I also do catch myself like, damn, like I kind of want more. Like I feel like I should be doing more and things like that. And this isn't enough. And, I feel like social media has a part to play in that. But I also feel like, again, like I feel like people were having these thoughts and these ideas, way before social media. that's where status is created. That's how that was created, because this person had a nice house or built their nice house. It's like, well, fuck, like I need to build a nicer house because, and I think it really does boil down to, just like, people are doing this shit for pussy. Like, like why else? If you really think about that shit, like if it wasn't for that, I truly feel like most men wouldn't have the need to really go above and beyond and impress.
I think there was this, the one term that's bothered me as I've gotten older, I guess there's a lot of terms, but one of them is, the whole toxic masculinity, I think, is one that's kind of bothered me over time. Cause it's like, it's almost shunned upon to be a man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think we as men, and I forgot where I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. It's like the way that men compete for women is nothing. Women don't really compete for men. No, that's not something they do.
Not at all.
A woman could walk by a man or a group of men, and even if we don't mean to do it, we'll kind of, it's like
a little side eye. Yeah,
like,
oh shit, nice.
It's like, but it's not, and it's not like you're being disrespectful. It's just like a weird kind of like, but.
Well, I feel like that's kind of, biologically wired into us. Like me personally, I think if you boil it down, I think all living things are made to put on this earth to reproduce, procreate, pass on your genes, and anything after that is kind of, icing on the cake. But I think at its very core, that's it. That's what it is. And then again, once you start adding these extra things, like, all right, well, now we're a little bit more, we have fire, we have, berries, we're going to hunt. Oh, now we're, we don't have to travel. We know how to farm and all those things kind of inherently pour into I need to be more impressive than the next guy, because if I can't get such and such girl, or if I can't get this, the primal part, then I can't pass on my genes, my lineage, my legacy is not going to be passed on, and it ends right here. And I think, again, a lot of that gets overlooked, and people don't really take that into consideration. And if you do mention it, which I have before, and I've had people look at me like, what the fuck? Like, how does that doesn't make any sense. I'm like, well, that makes all the fucking sense. Like, how, like, where do you think we started? Like, how do you think we came from? Like, it's not like we just appeared and like we snapped our fingers and we had apartment complexes and houses and car dealerships and all this shit. Like, where do you think that shit came from? Like, it was over time, because somebody was doing something and somebody felt threatened by it, so they felt like they needed to do it better.
Evolutionarily, it makes sense that like it had to have worked at one point. So if a man had a really nice hut and he was able to reproduce the more women, that worked. So that must have been something we just passed on as a habitual trait. as human beings, like, there's
natural selection and survival of the fittest and things like that kind of falls into that.
Yeah, there's a reason why high heels are a thing. It's not. It's there's something about elongating a leg that makes women more attractive to a mate. There's just something about, like, there's all these things that we sort of inherently do that just make us attractive to the opposite sex in most, I guess, same sex in some instances. But I was gonna say, it's like an attractive dude could walk past a group of women and they could give two shits about that dude. Like, it just doesn't work out the same way with women as it does with men. Even when I think about, like, the industry that I've worked in forever, and fitness and exercise science, it's the majority of the successful online coaches are typically women. It's because women follow women's content and men follow women's content. Men don't follow other dudes' content. Like, most men are following they're following women's content. It's a different thing altogether. As just human beings, we're just. I think what a lot of these conversations that people need to understand is, like, as human beings, we're wired. It's a very strange thing. We are wired to be successful at certain things. Even conversations about the left and the right, it's because someone wants to beat the other side. We're very tribal in that aspect. Like, we're constantly looking to try to get one up on everybody else. But that's kind of like that. That's how we've gotten this far. Like, we didn't get this far by being passive.
Yeah.
We didn't, it's not like the weakest survive. That's, no one's ever said that. That's like the complete
But
opposite.
I mean, that's kind of, I might get some shit for this, but I mean, I think that's, kind of the issues that maybe we haven't run into, but we might be running into soon. I know, like, in some places, like in China and Japan, they kind of are having population issues, but they had weird restrictions and shit like that. But I mean, it's getting to the point, like, like 50, 60, 70 years ago, you were born with certain things and you were not surviving. Now with I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but with the way that medicine and technology has advanced, there's people that are living way beyond than they would have naturally. But in turn, like, they still have to take up resources. They still are taking up things. And, like, I know it sounds insensitive as fuck, but, like, there's only so much to go around. Like, I do think that, if you're able-bodied, things like that, you can go out and get yours and there's things. But, like, at a certain point, like, if there's somebody that is just not physically able to contribute or cannot for whatever reason, like, they are still taking up some type of resources, which is going to inevitably take away from somebody that is abled and that can do things. And we've never been at a point in history where that we know of, that we are able to do that. And, that comes with its own set of problems.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to reach an interesting point here soon because, I mean, the baby boomer generation is starting to get old. They're called the baby boom generation for a reason. There's a shit ton of them. Yeah, they were getting it in. Yeah. There's a lot of them, so they are taking up a lot of resources. They own a lot of things. They have a very large, because when they were younger, that's another weird thing about the generational things. It's like the baby boomers look down on younger generations like, why can't you get your shit together? And it's like, because when you were our age, things were a lot cheaper. Yeah. They were far there. You could just buy it. Like, you could buy a house for dirt cheap back then. And now that house is worth a shit ton of money. And you were able to accrue wealth based off of that initial home purchase. Like, things have changed. Like, it's not the same situation, which kind of leads into this issue now, which you brought up, was like population. There's a factor in which we need to populate. I think it's like every person needs to have 1.2 other people. Yeah. In order to repopulate the world.
It's funny when you say it like that.
But it's like a weird way of saying it. But it's like to repopulate the world and to take in consideration, people dying before they grow to maturity and before they can contribute. It's like, it's like we need to have X amount of people. We're below that. Some of these countries, like I know Russia and China, who often pump up their population numbers, are basically populations of old people. So they are no longer able, and especially the way that Russia goes to war, where they're like, okay, first, Step one, human shield. Let's just line up these motherfuckers. Hold a gun in your hand. You're probably not going to make it, but this is our step one. And then a couple of years later, we're just going to wear everybody down. Then eventually we'll negotiate some wacky deal that gives us an entire country. But I think because your generation, the generation younger than you, because everything is so expensive, because the world is becoming so, and not that I'm against capitalism in any way, shape, or form, but because of the way the world works now, because you need so much money, student loan debt, trust me, I feel that one. We're going to put ourselves in an interesting and very sort of perilous situation where all the rest of that bullshit is just not going to matter. Conversations about race and gender, like all that shit is just not going to matter. And if we can start to take multiple steps, like zoom out, like zoom way out and just not think about our sort of very localized nonsense and just think about globally what's happening. Some of these decisions that need to be made are ones that are going to be better for everybody, and you get conservatives that are like, we shouldn't give anybody anything because they should all pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And then the liberals they want to give everybody everything. And it's like, well, we kind of got ourselves into the situation we are now because we were giving everybody everything. Yeah. But in that same vein, the conservatives, like, nobody can be successful if we don't give anybody anything. Yeah. So we need to figure out a way to find somewhere in the middle. But I mean, the good thing is in most conversations, most issues, it's always a pendulum swinging. Like, it's always, things are going to swing a little bit to the left. Things are going to swing a little bit to the right. Eventually, we're hopefully going to find ourselves sort of somewhere in the middle, or at least closer to the middle. And I guess my hope is always that we always, like, maybe 5 years from now, we look back and be like, man, remember we were arguing about some dumb shit? Like, remember that? Like, remember that was somebody, and I've got like these weird, and my wife is going to hate this, but I've got all these weird hobbies about like ufology and like aliens and shit. And I'm always like, man, if some I was literally just thinking that here, I'm like, I hope, because I think that would be one of those things that changes everybody's perspective.
Well, have you seen, one, I think they're already here. I think they've been here. I think they live among us.
Why would you come here? Well, if you're already here, there's no need to come here. Like, you're already here. Like, we'll just hang back and just wait until these monkeys blow each other up.
But did you see that video of like, I forget what type of missile was shot at this UFO, and then it bounced right off it, readjusted and kept on going. There's that. There was the one of the little Tic Tac that was like going up and doing all this other crazy shit, the New Jersey stuff with the drones. History was one of my favorite subjects and things like that. And that's something that, I still kind of, human history is very interesting to me. Like, it's just, kind of, again, it gets kind of repetitive at a certain point, but like, just because of the lack of records at certain points and things like that. And, very much the winners write history. So they're writing, kind of like you said, people are writing things through their own lens and things like that. And, when you take over somewhere and you burn all their books, you're going to write things in your favor. So, there's all that, but like, just especially with Egypt and the pyramids and all these, ancient civilizations that just kind of got wiped off and things like that without really like much reason behind it. It just kind of seemed like they're, all right, we're done being advanced. Like, let's just go somewhere else or whatever. Like, there is a lot of like, well, we're exploring with, space travel. We've done it a little bit, Elon Musk with going to Mars and things like that. Like, at a certain point, there has to be another planet, another race, another species of living things that have already mastered these things. There's people that think that the ancient Egyptians had technology that way surpasses anything that we have. And that's why they were able to, build how, the pyramids how they were, and a lot of the technology and structures that they had, because they had whatever type of technology that was available to them, that there was some massive what's it called, natural disaster, and it just kind of wiped all that shit away. But I'm very much in the belief that the aliens are here. Like, if anybody that thinks we're just by ourselves, just floating around in space like this, I feel like come on now, like we can't be the only ones. It just seems like a very naive way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's for me, it's just a fun conversation. It's like, even, the ancient civilization thing's fun. I read something the other day. It was like 90% of the historical records have been destroyed. So
right.
It's like 90% of the things that happened way beyond way beyond recorded history is just gone. Like it just no longer exists.
Well, I just saw something that like, and I didn't read the article fully, but that some archaeologists found a human skull that was like dated back to like 1 million years ago.
Yeah, they keep finding things that are older,
which is like way past because humans are like 500,000 some years old or some shit like that. But like 1 million years is like, that's another 500,000 that we can't really account for. It's just like, oh shit, like here's this human skull, we're dating it back to 1 million years. Like what is going on in that 500,000 year gap that we just did not know existed with human history until now?
I mean, there's like a lot of like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey.
Yeah.
They're like, this shouldn't be this old, and it also shouldn't be this intricate. Like, the thought is that, it's a structure. At the time, we thought that we were hunter-gatherer. Like we should have been out. We should have been, we shouldn't have reached the point where we had a place, and it definitely should not have been this nice.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be. And they're like, oh, there's more of these, like all over Turkey. And then there's like they are, and it's sad to think about it to some degree, but it's like, there's a lot of deforestation happening in the Amazon. Mm-hmm. But then they start cutting down these trees, and they're like, oh shit, there's like temples here and there's things here that should not be here.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, that's also very old. But the craziest thing to me about all of it is that all of that old shit is spread all around the world, and it all looks very similar. So it's like we couldn't get to each other.
Yeah.
So how are we all creating things that are very similar in all these different spaces that are very far away from each other? Like that doesn't make sense at all. There's just weird things. It's like, you'd almost be naive to think that with all of these discoveries that either we aren't a lot older than what we think we are. There is something called the Younger Dryas, which is basically an event where they're like something from space hit the Earth, basically decimated everything.
And we started from zero.
Like there was probably, a couple thousand human beings, and they kind of restarted the whole thing again. Yeah. We don't know what was going on before that. So who knows?
There's people, I forget what I did yesterday sometimes. So it's like, how can we be so sure? Like we know what happened 200,000 years ago or 500,000 years ago and shit like that.
Like none of it makes sense where, when I think that, and if I were to put, people call it, their tinfoil hat. I always think that I'm black, so I wear a kufi, and I say, if I put my kufi on real tight, one of the things that I think about organized religion, especially like the Catholic Church, this isn't anything derogatory about the Catholic Church at all, but the Catholic Church has a giant vault in the Vatican. They don't let anybody in, ever. Nobody's ever been in there. It's like vacuum sealed. You don't go in there. And sometimes I'm like, why can't we go in there? Like, what's going on in there? What is it? Someone's in there?
Hiding something.
What's in there that's so important to the point where no one else can go in there to look to see what's going on? Like, what's written in there?
What do they have holding in there? Well, I think what is also interesting, like an interesting theory, is that we're just a science experiment. And what really makes me think that is like the way that we're, people can like customize their babies now.
Yeah.
Which is insane. But like, if we're able to do that on a level like that, why wouldn't it be possible? And I mean, to get even deeper, like, there's, the world of cells and things like that. That is, we cannot comprehend it unless we get a super ultra strong microscope. And there's just a world that is going on that is creating all these things that is happening. And it's so small for us to comprehend without, some type of technology to see it. So imagine that little cell, like we're so big and so large that in that world that they don't even notice that we're a thing. So couldn't the world, the solar system, the universe be that? Why couldn't we're so small that yes, we could see things. I could see this room, like, we're able to get satellites and we could see that, there's the Earth, there's other planets, but like, what if it's just we're so microscopic in the bigger picture of things, that maybe this universe, we're just in a fucking fish tank. And like, you know, like, or have you seen Rick and Morty?
Yeah.
We're just we're just somebody's car battery.
Yeah.
And like,
it's like in Men in Black, he opens up, he's like, oh, the universe. And, and they open up a locker, they're like, the universe, and it's like this little thing. You're like, oh shit. Like, I mean, it maybe, who knows? But it's I always think it's interesting when people are like, no, that's all nonsense. I think it goes back to everything else. It's like, could it all be nonsense? Like, it can't all be wrong. Like, some of it has to be slightly legitimate, or it is the most elaborate sort of ruse that does the government want us to think that there's, and like, you know, just doesn't, some of these things just don't make sense. Especially when the us finding these older civilizations, that's one where it's like, there's no way, what is the government planning, putting things to the ground? Again, this is not a shot at religions at all, but the idea that some religious people say that these things are being found that like predate certain religious milestones, they were put there to like test us.
Which doesn't make sense, because I'm not, you know, I actually I want to read the Bible just to because it has a lot of, it's a historical book.
Phenomenal. It's a great book.
Yeah, it's historical. I mean, and again, there's a lot of things that you can take from it, but like what the Bible was written like 500 years after Jesus, right? Or some shit like that.
It was written, about 500. Is it 500? I don't think it's 3,500. But I want to say
enough time to pass that it's like, what the fuck?
Like, I couldn't write a book about this, tomorrow.
Yeah, like how are we like, again, like I don't know what's going on. I don't pretend to know what's going on. The world is a fucking wild, crazy. There's fucking trillions of things going on at one time. So like, you know, it's just beyond anybody's comprehension. But I just feel like, who gives a fuck, really? At the end of the day, like, what do we get from, you know, my religion's right, or, you know, my theory is correct, and you're like, I was talking to somebody very close to me, and they're atheist. Cool, whatever. Like, if that's what you choose, that's cool. But like, I was getting in a debate with them, talking about like, all right, well, you know, you choose politics as your religion. So, all right, you're against religion, you know, you choose this, you do that. You also believe that this could be a simulation, but let's sit back and think that, all right, so what if this whole Jesus thing and all that turns out to be true? Then what? Or like, what if it turns out that the whole simulation is true? Or what if you are right and there is no God and we're just fucking, nothing matters and we just die and nothing happens, or what? Then what after that? Like, what is the, like, why are you shitting on people that are not having the same belief? Because we don't know. None of us fucking know. For as much as we might want to believe that we know, nobody fucking knows.
The thing about Jesus Christ is that there's a high probability that Jesus Christ existed, and it's because I believe that he did. There's bits from the Bible. There's bits from the crucifixion. There's a bit in there about him bleeding water, and where he was stabbed. So people break these things down. Where he was stabbed during the crucifixion, he had something called I'm gonna butcher this. Hydropneumothorax. I butchered that for sure. That's not right.
Sounds right to me.
But it basically means like at some point, water in your lungs.
Yeah.
So he got stabbed in a place where he had water, like the compartments in his body had released because a highly stressful situation. Yeah. His body released water into his lungs. So he got stabbed. He bled water.
Yeah.
So there was that. There was something about the sky being red. They went back. Like, astrologers can do these things. They can use math and to go, where were we at that point in history? And there was a blood moon. So there's all these things that point at that happened.
Yeah.
Jesus probably existed.
Yeah.
He probably was crucified. The tricky bit is Was he resurrected?
Yeah.
That's where things get
performing
sideways.
miracles.
Right. Like if you could prove that, then it's like, okay, like now but you can prove that he existed. You could prove that he was crucified.
Yeah.
The resurrection part, things get a little bit dicey there. You may or may not be able to prove that bit. The atheists, I was once an atheist, and I think I was an atheist because of the way I was raised. I was raised very Catholic. And then from being a Catholic, my mom sort of, like, I've been to a Scientology church. There used to be one in downtown Orlando. I've been to, which my favorite church is like Southern Baptist. Like that's my shit. Like I love going to church. It has like a full band. Yeah. Everybody's dancing. Yeah. I love
good vibes. It's just good vibes.
It's a good time. Like who wouldn't like that church? And I think over time I was like, it's a good story, but it's probably not true. But then again, if you think about things critically, and I tell my son this all the time because he goes to a Catholic school and because he's a bright kid, he starts to question things. And I say, okay, think about it like this, buddy. There's two stories. The one story says that everything in the universe that we know of and things we don't know of, all of that energy was so dense that it fit in a space about the size of the ballpoint pen, just the tip of it, right? And then for some reason, it all exploded. Universe. Yeah. Crazy fucking story, right? Or there's another story. The story goes like this. There is an entity that exists, and then that entity created everything that we see. Also, crazy fucking story. So it's like both stories are pretty wacky at the end of the day. So you can't necessarily say that one of those stories is any more true than the other one because you can't really prove. They are disproving the Big Bang. They're disproving how it happened. They're disproving like how old the universe is. They're disproving all those things.
Which is wild to think about.
There's the James Webb, and I went down a real deep James Webb telescope for like maybe my son and I. And that thing's coming back with all sorts of stuff where it's like maybe the universe is a lot older than we thought it is. Yeah. Maybe galaxies are created in a different way than we thought they were. And then it's this big story of like, so the universe ends at some point. Right. What's on the other side of that? Like, that's a wacky thing to think about. Like, we realize the universe is big, right? Very big, like inconceivably big. They say that like there's more galaxies in the universe than there are grains of sand on the entire Earth.
I heard that before, which is fucking insane.
Insane. If you hold you pick up a handful of sand and just look at it, you're like, how many
Where do I even
grains
start?
of sand?
Like, what the fuck?
Right. So there's more galaxies in the universe than there are grains of sand on the entire planet. But now you got to think there's something outside of that. Like so to think that either it all happened by chance or to think that there is some sort of intelligent design, both of those things can be true. They can be true at the same time, but the thought of like that nothing happened. And it's here. Like like that's a crazy way to go about it.
It is. Yeah. I mean, every time I have a conversation like this, it really just humbles me. And it's like, damn, we really ain't shit, huh? Like, goddamn, like any type of high horse that I was on or any type of, I'm like, yeah, damn, we ain't shit. But like, also like for me, as far as like the faith and the religion stuff, I'm not religious. I feel like I'm more spiritual. I feel like, tapped in with the universe, kind of hippie shit a little bit. But I do think that there is a level of importance to have some type of faith, to have some type of belief, even if you don't necessarily fully believe it. Because even with me, like, the universe and all this other, like there are some things I'm like, damn, that sounds dumb as fuck. But like, I feel like just how humans are, like having some type of like guiding light, a North Star or whatever, I feel like keeps people on the right track. When you start kind of veering away from that, it's very easy to be very pessimistic, be very like, oh, well, none of this matters, so what the fuck? And I think it's a lot easier to, even if you're not doing bad things, I feel like it's a lot easier to go to a dark place in your head, if that makes sense. And like, I don't feel like you don't really get much use from that. I mean, I feel like it blocks kind of your imagination and your creativity a little bit, which kind of in turns takes away like the inner child in you a little bit, which in turn then it's like, well, again, what's the fucking point of anything? Like, why do I do shit? And you kind of just start working in autopilot. And I think that to me, that's a dangerous place to be working in, especially once you become an adult and you can kind of just do what the fuck you want and things like that. I just feel like it's very murky waters to work in. And again, believe what you want to believe. I'm not going to be someone who shits on anybody for what they believe or if they're this or that or whatever. Like, I just feel like have faith in something, because this life is already fucking hard enough. Like, this life is already hard enough. Why make it harder on yourself? And it's funny because my mom's the one that said that. Because she's someone too, like she's a crystal girl. She wears all those fucking bracelets. Like she wears all the bracelets and all these other things and shit like that. And she's the one that she's like, yeah, I think half of this shit is dumb as fuck, but it gives me something to believe in, and it gives me something to kind of, in those dark times to kind of lean on a little bit when I feel like I need it. And yeah, I think it's dumb. I think it's stupid, but I like it and it vibes with me. So that's why. And I think like it really can be just that simple. Like, you don't have to fucking be so devout and yes, because the stars are Mercury's in retrograde or whatever the fuck, or because like, I read this verse in this Bible and I saw, my angel numbers on the clock or whatever. Like, it doesn't have to be that deep, but just like have something.
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, a lot of the reason why we are in the situations that we are now, because people don't have anything to kind of, they don't have a North Star. So they're creating their own North Stars. Mm-hmm. And most of it isn't productive at all. I mean, I do all the things. I pray, I meditate. I'm covering all of my bases. So just in case if any of these things are true, I've done it.
I'm good. We good. I've punched my ticket.
I'm good. I think it's, because again, we just need something to believe in. I think there's a reason why, if you look at like old cave paintings and these old temples, they're all sort of worshiping some deity. Yeah. They're all worshiping something. They all believed in something. And whether or not they were using it to like get other people to believe in something and build a giant sand castle in the middle of Egypt, like it's like, but at the end of the day, it's like, those people were they weren't like, let's argue about something. They
wanted to come together and agree on something.
Yeah. They're like, let's build some shit. It was a different way of thinking. And right now we're in a weird spot where nobody's believing in anything, and like believe in some weird, I believe in like a million just weird things that my wife again hates it.
Well, I think there's like something in that because I have my own set of beliefs, but I also believe that any of these other things could be possible. Yeah. Outside of what I believe. Yeah. But I still believe what I believe. But I'm not naive enough to put all my eggs in that basket. It's like, I know that I could be so fucking wrong. And that's the thing. Like, I'd be okay with it. It's like, fuck, like, we finally have the answer. Like, we finally know what the fuck is going on, like why everything is and this, that, whatever, and the third and all these other things. But, kind of, back to the, one of the points of the beginning is just like, people get so rooted in their ideas and so rooted in their beliefs that they don't want to let it go. Even when the answer is right there in their motherfucking face, they just is like, nope, that's wrong. And it's just like, oh, you're not doing yourself any favors. I admire your delusion, but I'm gonna have to go pivot right a little bit, and just you keep on living your life how you live it, because sometimes people's delusion sometimes it is admirable. Like, I wish I could be that delusional sometimes, but it's like I don't think I'm like the fucking like all knower of things, but it's like I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of how things work, to where I just cannot I can't like subscribe to one thing fully, just because I know there's just so many other things at play, so many other things at work, like so many other just everything else going on, that it's like, yep, like
Yeah, I think there's this. It's like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, when you start to learn a little bit about something, you think you know everything.
Yep.
And then when you start to learn more about something, you realize that you know nothing at all. And that's where people get really jammed up because they start to learn a little bit about, I learned a little bit about politics. I learned a little bit about race. I learned a little bit about astrology. I learned a little bit about, you know, it could be a number of this. So now I think I know everything, you know, because we are, again, we've become the society that can only really concentrate on things for like a short duration. So you're only learning a little bit at a time, but that effect forces you to think that you know everything. Like I read a headline, I read something on this Instagram post. So just the one, like that's it.
Like now you're an expert.
You did.
Bravo.
You did 45 seconds of research on this thing.
Instagram certified.
Yeah, so now you're an expert. You know, and that's the tough bit, I think. You know, I think if there's anything, if we just need to spend a little bit more time being a little bit more empathetic, learning more things, opening up our mind to stuff. And that's what I always think. I'm like, man, some fucking aliens came here or have already been here. I would just sit back and just go, I can't wait to see. And I bet there's still be some people that are like, this is nonsense. They would probably watch an alien walk down the street and be like, oh, this isn't real. Or like this, you know,
of course,
Trump put this here. Like it's like, you know, you know, it would always be this weird kind of thing. But I think that, you know, there's a lot going on in the world that we don't know, and to be very stuck in our thoughts because we have this idea that we know a lot about things. Yeah, that's where we get very confused. And I just wish that people would have. I just wish, you know, I feel like social media is that, and I probably said this earlier, I really feel, I feel the older I get, the more I realize that we probably don't need to communicate as much as we probably don't need that. Yeah. There has to be a threshold of like, how much communication do we need? Like I almost feel like we were all happier as a society where like, if I wanted to talk to Eric, I have to pick up the phone, I have to call him.
Yep. Go through the Rolodex, look at the number.
And I can't just be like, call you and be like, hey, what's up? And then hang up the phone. Then you pick up the phone 30 minutes, like when you're on lunch at work or something, you're like, I'm good. And then what are you up to? Like that, like this weird form of communication it's like extremely sort of truncated. It's separated by all these hours of time. I kind of feel like maybe we weren't meant to communicate like that. Like it might be too much communication. It might be, it's weird to say that it's too much information. But I
was literally just thinking that because I was going to be like, I think it's just a lot of overload on things. Overload on communication, information overload. I think the 24-hour news cycle was, and it's funny because, you know, Anchorman 2, if you've seen that, it kind of, it kind of alludes to that. It's like, you know, the 24-hour news cycle really does not give you a chance to decompress, digest things, register things, because it's just one thing after another, just piling. And like most people are just not built and designed to hold that much, retain that much in such a short amount of time. You need time to process. You need time to, oh damn, how did that make me feel? What did I just see? What did I, what did this person tell me? Like, how were they trying to deliver them? Like, again, there's so much nuance in things, and people are just trying to force feed you things like it's, like it's easy to digest and easy to swallow when that shit is fucking, whoa, like, what did you just say? And we're just going to gloss over this? Like, it's just something else? Like, what the fuck? And I think that, I do think that people need to just slow down a little bit, take a breather, not get so much, into worrying about what other people doing, worrying about, this or that. Obviously, yes, the news is good. Yes, obviously knowing what's going on and information is a great thing, and the way that, we're able to access it is wonderful and all that. But just like everything else, there's got to be a certain threshold to where it's like, all right, calm down.
Yeah.
Like, chill out. Go fucking be in nature. Go touch grass or something. Go hug a tree. Just just chill. Like, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. It's like, put the phone down. For real. And we all do it. Like, if I leave my phone, I'm like, oh shit. Like, you freak out. You're like,
it's become a part of you. I mean, my dad took, because he's very techie as well. He works for NASA and all this, so he's very into that. I mean, assimilating with technology is seeming like it's more and more the reality than it is sci-fi at this point, and it's, to me, that's
I remember
murky waters as
there
well.
was like this conspiracy theory, and they're like, eventually they're going to put the chips in us because it says in the Bible, the mark of the beast. And everybody was like, oh, that's bullshit. There's no way that's happening. And then now I'm like,
with the Neuralink.
I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not saying that biblical verses are sort of prognosticating things that could happen. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's interesting that there is sort of this duality from the things that are in the Bible and things that are possibly happening.
That Neuralink shit, or people uploading their, that's one thing that my dad has always said, that the minute that people are able to upload their conscience, is like he's doing it in a heartbeat. I'm like,
I'm not going to be
that's
first
scary.
person. I'm not going to be the first person. Yeah, I'm not in that test class.
Hell
like,
no, that shit. Yeah, how does this work? Because the human consciousness is a fucking whole other thing in and of itself.
Well, that's the weird thing. It's like it's one of those things that nobody's ever been able to explain.
Right.
You can't explain how we're conscious. Like we can't explain. Like I can't explain what you see. We could be seeing two completely different things.
Looking at the same thing and seeing two different things.
The way that we put things together really is almost separate from anything physiological. Like it has nothing to do with that at all. Like the way we literally see the universe. And that's where that whole simulation theory comes from. It's like we don't, none of the things we're seeing comes from, it's our brain, our eyes see something, but then our brain interprets something completely different.
Which is crazy.
Yeah, which is a wacky way
over
to
here
think
fucking like my brain is like, oh, what the fuck? Like they can't compute.
Yeah, it's too much to even think about. I mean, it's fun to think about it every now and then. It's a good time when you're a dork to think about like simulation theory, but
I mean, The Sims, fuck, the fun game, great game, but it's like, who says we're not Sims?
I mean, that would make a lot of sense.
Like, have you ever just stood in a room like, what the fuck, where am I in here for? And you just kind of sit there and think for a second, like, all right, and then just fucking leave. Like, we were just waiting for a command. The person that was playing us just went to go, I don't know, grab some snacks or whatever. Yeah. And like, but like that's like,
there's a bunch of what is it? It's the dual slit experiment, where it's like if you shoot, I'm gonna butcher this. This is gonna sound so dumb, but it's like they took photons of light and put it through like 2 photons of light, like almost like 2 slits. And it's like the light is perceived differently when you're looking at it than when you're not looking at it. If that makes any sense. So the thought
Say
is
that
like,
again?
So it was like they put 2 photons of light and then observe it. And then some way, and I'm, again, this is going to sound real dumb. Somebody should Google this, but
look it up.
But it basically says it like we perceive things in the moment. Everything that's happening outside of our perception might not be what it's supposed. Like it's almost saying like what's happening in this room, the things that we can perceive, this is happening.
Yeah.
What's happening out there is completely different based off of if there's somebody out there perceiving that thing.
Okay,
like it's like a weird kind of like everything is based off of everybody's perception. Nobody understands why it happens. I think it's literally called the spooky action of light or something like that.
Damn. We're in spooky season right now. So.
But it basically says that, a lot of what we see, it's our perception. It isn't, there's no way to explain it scientific. It's like,
human existence
and
is
people are complaining
wild.
about like dumb shit. Like
Real.
it's it's like open. There's so many things going on than arguing about something wacky on the internet. Like it just doesn't make sense, man.
That's what this world has come to. That's what we are at. This is the pinnacle of human civilization right here.
It's terrifying.
It's like the best time to be alive, but like also the worst time to be alive. And it's like, it's kind of like how you perceive it.
I still think it's the best time to be alive. I think no one's concerned about, we don't have to walk out the door and think like, oh, there might be somebody trying to rob us, or like there might be like some invaders out front. Like that's just not, we don't worry about those things at all. Our worries are a lot different. There's still relatively fucked up things happening in the world, but
in the sense of like, in this point in time, like you could have somebody that is the most technologically advanced, you know, rocket scientist, things that, but in the very same instance, someone that indigenous people that live in the rainforest that have no fucking idea what a fucking drone is or what a phone is,
and
or
living forever.
And and just living the same way that they've lived that set for thousands of years,
and living to like 100, like what do they call them, blue zones, where people live to like 110 years old because they have there's no technology. They live in the jungle. Yeah. They're not interacting with society. Some of them get real pissed off. Like there's videos where they fly by in a helicopter and these people are just looking up like, what the fuck are you? So they're like bow and arrows and throwing spears at helicopters, and they're like, get out of here.
This ain't doing shit.
Yeah,
stupid.
And none of them are like, we need to figure out where that helicopter came from. They're like, no, we're good.
Right.
We would like to stay here.
I mean, I feel like there's something to be said about that. Like I said, go touch some grass, go fucking climb a tree or some shit. One last thing before we get out of here. This is actually the longest podcast that I've done, and it's been great. I appreciate you for coming. But what about your Colts, dog? What is going on?
I mean, first, I feel like this is a perfect opportunity for me to apologize. Now I call him, it's Mr. Daniel Dimes.
Danny Dimes over here having a resurgence.
I feel like I need to apologize because when they traded for him, I was just like, oh, like
Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, like, what the fuck? Why?
Yeah, and I mean, it's a great. I think it's a good situation for the future if we keep Anthony Richardson around because he's a freak of nature. I think that if he could. His issue, he just needs to mature. I feel like he's a child. I feel like what is he, 22? Like he's a baby.
He only played 15 games in college.
Yeah, like I feel like him sitting behind a professional like Daniel Jones, it's almost like that Aaron Rodgers situation where like he sits behind someone who shows up to the meetings on time, takes that information, carries himself like a professional, like does all the right things. And now Anthony Richardson can watch that. Like he can watch someone do the right things. The worst thing that could happen to Anthony Richardson's career is for him to get traded somewhere and for somebody else to start him. Like I feel like that's the worst thing. That most of that draft class is trash. Like it's CJ Stroud was in a press conference the other day saying that he feels like he's getting old because he's slower. I'm like, like Bryce Young is 4'9". I mean, it's like that draft class wasn't great, but I feel like out of all, Anthony Richardson might be the shining star, but it has to
at least physically he is. Yeah,
he just can't start. Like
I thought he should have stayed another year at Florida. Yeah. No, one, because I am a Florida fan, but two, like it just would have been better for his development and his growth. Like, I mean, you kind of see that the quarterbacks that are getting time in college and getting starts and are a little seasoned are the ones that turn out to be a little bit more successful in the league and learn how to navigate it a little bit more because they've been put in, every situation that you can think of. Now it's just, just a step up in competition. But yeah, that whole, him coming out after 15 games, and I get it, money.
I get paid. I get
it. Exactly. Yeah. But what cost? I mean, you kind of, part of my concern for it is like, how his confidence is going to be coming off of something like this, and, shout out to Shane Steichen, Philly boy, you guys took him from us, but, he's a good coach. He's a good quarterback coach. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to coach offense. So, to your point that he is in that situation that if Shane Steichen is willing and can see something that we can't and can cultivate that, then this is a perfect situation for Anthony Richardson and as a Colts fan, because then you have your guy right now that could probably carry you for another year or two, this year, and depending on how it goes. But then you have that guy, by the time he's ready, he's going to be 24, 25 and still
Daniel
have.
Jones is like what, 30? I
don't even think he's that old.
I think
he's got to be still in his 20s. Let's see real quick.
Because he was, what is he, third overall draft pick that year?
Sixth.
And
because I thought that was a reach. I remember I said it on this very podcast.
But I mean,
he's 28. So yeah, if he can carry you for another 2 years until he's 30, and then Anthony Richardson can come in and because he's the physical, the athleticism, it's like that's Cam Newton-ish.
Yeah, and he's young. So I mean, if Danny Dimes, I think he's on a 2 or 3 year contract. he's making not very much money. I mean, he's making a ton of money. But he's not making a lot.
Relatively speaking.
As a first starter quarterback, he's probably going to look for more money at some point in time. But, you know what I'm saying? I think that it's a great situation for Anthony Richardson. I don't know how much longer JT's going to be. Like, I don't know if Anthony Richardson and JT because JT's probably in his prime now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's only like 26 too. I mean, he still might have a few years that.
But I mean, running backs, what do you get? You know, usually it's like 3.5 years is on the average. So he's probably getting up there. I mean, Christian McCaffrey has now siphoned all the life force from everybody on his team. That's why he's doing so well. But I mean, he's a little bit older than JT. You know, but those guys just don't last that long. So, I mean, for a little bit, I was hoping that, you know, maybe we would tank and get another Manning. But I know that Arch isn't. The chance of him coming to the Colts is like real slim. Yeah.
Plus, I think, I mean, the way that this season's going, I think he's been improving, but I think he'll probably stay another year in Texas. Yeah. And you know, ride it out fully. And because I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to be all right. I think people kind of blew out the Ohio State game out of proportion a little bit. It's like your first start on the road at Ohio State, reigning national champs.
Were too high.
Yeah. I mean, Heisman, I was like, Jesus Christ, like, let the kid breathe.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, given his pedigree, the family, you know, kind of how they've carried themselves and everything like that, I do think he finds his way to the NFL. I do think he is a first-round draft pick. I do think he will be successful. But I think they're looking at big picture. They're looking at it from the full scope. They're not worried about, Ohio State, this one game, this one season. It's like, we're good. Like, we know what we're doing. 3 generate. I mean, I'm sure the dad too, Cooper, would have been good too, but he like fucked up his knee.
He was supposedly
the most athletic.
Like he was the most athletic.
Yeah, because he was playing. I think he played receiver, right? Yeah. In high school and whatever, and then he fucked his knee up. But
because Peyton is not athletic. No, he's just smart.
It's fuck. I mean, he's got a giant head.
Dome.
That forehead is fucking whoop. Mega mind.
Just brains for days. I mean, you know, when Eli was a little bit more athletic, you know, a little bit less brain, but probably just as athletic.
The recklessness, though, and like the willing to just fucking let that thing fly. I mean, there's got to be something to be said about that because Peyton Manning couldn't crack the Tom Brady code.
When Peyton did it twice. Run, I remember him running and me just being like, no, like, because you're just like, well,
really clunky.
His
just
head's moving back. Stop. Don't run.
Shit. Who the Colts play this weekend?
Oh, I should know this information. The Raiders with poor Ashton Genty with no, I think the right guard.
Yeah, he had a nice little breakout game last week though against the Bears.
Behind that right guard. The right guard's now hurt because he kept trying to run on the left didn't work. The right worked. Now the right guard's done.
Damn.
You know, so poor kid, but I hope I'm not really that worried about him this weekend.
Fuck him. Let him get tackled in the backfield. I don't give a fuck. Nah, but man, I appreciate you coming on. It's been, like I said, I've been trying to get you on for a while, and I'm glad it's finally happened. I definitely hope we could do this again soon. You know, get more into whatever, sports, aliens, politics, fucking life, psychology, all the things that we touched on.
I love it.
This is episode 236 of the No Hangover Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, rate, follow across all platforms. We're on YouTube. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify. Check us out on our socials on Instagram at No Hangover Podcast and on TikTok at @No_Hangover. Before I forget, do you have any social medias that you want to plug or anything like that? If not, do not feel obligated to.
I have the fitness social media page that it's mostly me training at this point. It's not really, but it's coachjason.holt. So it's JSON.Holt, which is, if you're very nerdy, you know what that means. But coachjason.Holt.
Word. Yeah, check him out. I mean, 46 years old and he's Jack, big strong man. But we're done. Everybody love everybody. Deuces.